Hey everyone, thanks for listening to EverydayFI, the show that explores the lives and stories of everyday people in the financial independence community. I'm your host, Megan Combs, and I'm bringing you another episode of Megan's Money Musings. So I'm without my co-host Mitch for this week, but don't worry, he'll be back in the next few weeks and we'll actually be getting to chat about how to throw a wedding party and have a wedding on a budget, and then also how to pay for that wedding. And this is all a reflection of my current life. And since Mitch got married several years back, he's going to give me some tips. I'm going to hand it off to our sponsors for a second, but today I want to talk about birthdays and expectations around birthdays and what you might have thought when you were younger, where you were supposed to be at this time in your life, things like that. So stay tuned for that. So I'm turning 38 this month. I turned 38 on February 22nd. Thank you. Thank you if you're saying happy birthday. Thank you very much. It's not quite a milestone birthday, but I still see 40 looming on the horizon. And it does make me think about where I thought I'd be at this age when I was younger and what may have changed from my expectations. So I'll be talking about marriage and family, career, and finances today and how those things have changed. And then also some things that I'm proud of that have changed about myself and my mindset. So let's start with marriage and family. So to be fair, I didn't really give this a lot of thought when I was younger. I definitely wanted to be, the independent woman, childless, manless, and just working on my career and having fun and being independent outside of like financial independence. This is all back when I was spending money like I was a Kardashian, even though I made very little money. But yeah, I didn't really think much about this. And I can't honestly remember if I ever actually thought about being married or having kids in any real sense, except that for kids, I always lean towards no thanks. So I guess I could say I kind of assumed that by the time I was 40, maybe I'd be married. There were several years where, like I said, I didn't want kids. And so I never really thought about that. But the funny thing is, reality hit. And guess what? I'm actually getting married in 2 weeks on my birthday. So this is the legal ceremony. This isn't the big party that I'm going to be throwing. And we just wanted to have a small ceremony with just 5 of us. And we're going up to a cabin that my mom has, and we're going to tie the legal knot. And then we're going to have a big old party in November where we're going to invite all of our friends and family and things like that. And that's where the budgeting is going to come in the episode I'm going to talk about Mitch is going to be on that specifically, because that one we're starting to put deposits on and things like that today, and it can get expensive, but there are some tricks. But that's not till a few weeks from now. So I was the kind of person who never really thought about a wedding or planning my wedding. Like, there are a lot of women who were girls who were like, I want my wedding to be exactly like this. And they had wedding books and things saved and ideas about flowers and colors and all of that. I am such a novice to this that I'm not even sure how weddings are supposed to work. And I know that sounds silly, but I mean, I don't know the etiquette. I don't know the steps. I don't know, like, I've had to Google, when do you save the dates and when do you send the invites and like what's expected and what's not expected, and do people pay for their own food? No. Okay. Do they pay for their, hotel if they're staying out here? Like, how does this work? And is it okay if I don't want a ceremony and bridesmaids and stuff like that? Like, what does that mean? Do I have to have an engagement party? Do I have to have a rehearsal dinner? Because to be honest, I don't really want to pay for either of those things. And so it's just funny that I just really know nothing, because when I was younger, I never really thought about it. And now that I'm 38, it's funny because 38 seems kind of late to be getting married. When you think about like society as a whole, a lot of people get married in their, mid to late 20s. a solid 10 years before this age. And by the time they're 38, they probably already have kids. Sometimes they even have kids who are teenagers. And I do know a couple friends who were my age who had kids at least in middle school. And I'm not even close to that. Like, we are probably going to have our first child around my age of 40. So it's kind of interesting how life goes. But yeah, so that definitely deviated from the path that I thought I would be on. And even more so because we are now planning to have kids. Like I said, I never thought that I would want kids. And the reason why that changed is because I had a lot of conversations with my therapist about why I didn't want to have kids. And when I realized that reason wasn't really serving me, and I met this person who, I knew I could have kids with, it completely changed my mind, which was awesome. And it's funny because even though this deviated from my initial plans of not having kids, it's actually quite difficult because Chris and I are having fertility issues. I should say I am having fertility issues. Chris is not, but he's in it with me, so we are. And I'm not going to go in that today. I know I've been kind of hinting at this a lot in previous episodes. I promise I will do a deep dive episode on this entire journey, but we're in the middle of it right now, including paying for it and things like that. I will tell you, HSAs are a godsend. I know in our community, we like to do the box method where we save all of our receipts and spend that money later. But that money has really come in handy for me. And I will talk all about that in the episode I'm going to do later this year. But I want to kind of get through it and get to an end stage before I do an episode on it. I promise that's coming. I won't leave you hanging. Okay, so the next topic I want to talk about that changed from when I was younger to now is my career. So if you've listened to the show in any amount of time, you will know that my first career was art history. And actually, technically, my first career that I ever wanted was being an artist. So that was when I was young, when I was a kid. And I think I deviated from that when I realized that just like being an artist, trying to paint or draw and then sell that was just not, it was going to be hard. It was going to be very hard. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, let me try something different. Let me go into academia. Let me go into art history. That'll make me more money, right? So, and we know from episode 33 with me and Mitch when we were talking about our career transitions, it didn't work out that way. I definitely changed from art history to tech. If you want full details on that story, you can listen to that episode. I'll drop it in the show notes. And to be honest, I had no idea that I would change like this when I was younger. I had no clue. Art and art history was the hill I wanted to die on. My family often said to me when I was younger, how will you make money doing art? And I always thought, I'll show you, because I was a rebellious kid and teenager and honestly 20-year-old. I just wanted to show them, But the funny thing is saying I'm going to show them and going off on some, fast forward montage of going to school and grinding and then getting the job as movies will show. It doesn't really work that way in real life. And I will admit that sometimes when I think about it, I do get disappointed with how things turned out sometimes. And not in myself, but in the realization that the real world is much less idyllic than what my young self thought it would be. Things really are dictated by money and the uber wealthy. And it was really hard to come to that conclusion while also trying to reach for a career that I thought was above that. I always thought pursuing a career in art history where I got paid less because I was following a passion, and that passion and that art was so much more important than money, meant that everyone in that field saw money as trivial, including like the people who created these institutions. I know when you're sitting here thinking about like how big the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York is and how expensive all that art is, I didn't know any of that, right? I didn't know how any of that really worked. And like I said, I was an idealistic kid. And I just thought that everybody in this field was, you know, as an artist, just didn't think about money that way. Money wasn't important. We were all starving artists and we were all starving artists together. And it was okay to make less as long as you were working for a purpose and working to make the world a better place. And I wanted to make the world a better place through teaching people about art and culture. But of course, that's not true. And I know I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again just in case there's any new listeners, and maybe I'll go deeper into the details here. But my last job in art before I switched careers was working at a medieval art gallery in New York. My boss, who owned the gallery, was a solid one percenter, maybe even like the 1% of the one percenter. He was a very wealthy man. Much of his wealth was inherited, and the art gallery had actually been passed down through his family from the 1800s. They came over from, I believe, Vienna in World War II. His family was Jewish, so they kind of escaped over here to the US and opened the gallery here, and they were already pretty wealthy. And, he opened a gallery on the Upper East Side of New York and sold to some very wealthy people, including museums and museum collection. And when I applied for this job, it was kind of funny because I was working in a restaurant. I was working part-time in a museum at a front desk at the time, and the museum that I worked in was not the art that I wanted to pursue. It was Himalayan art. And while I liked that, that wasn't what my degree was in. My degree and my concentration was really in medieval art. That's what I knew. And so I wanted a job in a medieval institution, whether it be a museum, which would have been the Cloisters or the Metropolitan Museum of Art, or it would have been like an art gallery. And so this was an art gallery. It was called Blumka Gallery, Blumka. That was his last name. When I applied for the job, I was kind of just fishing around at the different medieval institutions. And I think I just Googled like medieval galleries in New York City, and I saw that Blumka was one of them. And so I emailed them and I said, hey, if you're ever looking to hire somebody, I'd be very interested in learning more and breaking into this world. And funny thing is, the woman who was the gallery director at the time was like, hey, I'm actually stepping down in a few months. So yeah, send me your resume. And it's so funny. I think in that episode 33 with Mitch and I, we talked about luck surface area and how you can increase your luck surface area by creating opportunities for yourself. So this was one of them where I literally just cold emailed a bunch of places and actually got a job. And I will say I don't regret getting this job, right? This job taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about what I didn't want, actually, and it led me to leaving that career and building the life that I have today. So I don't regret it at all. I think if I hadn't gotten this job, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's one of those things where that small decision to cold email a gallery really was a turning point for me in my life. And so anyway, I didn't have any real gallery experience, but I knew I could do the job. It was not a difficult job. And I remember when I was in negotiations, the owner of the gallery, who, like I said, was part of the 1%, said right off the bat, we start at 60,000. And he was like, how does that sound? And me, who had been making around 25, was like, holy crap, that's a lot of money. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds great to me. Let's go forward. Let's do it. And then I had a second interview with his wife, who then asked me how much I wanted to be making. And I don't know what was going through my head, but I think I just wanted this job so much that I just said, well, I'm coming from the nonprofit world, so whatever you think is fair is probably going to be more than enough for me. I don't know why I said that. Like I said, I was young. I didn't really understand. I was 28 at the time. And so, that might seem older to some people, but I had only been in a working career for about 5 years at this point. So I really didn't know about salary negotiation. I hadn't really found finance podcasts yet, things like that. And so I didn't know how to stick up for myself. And also, I didn't have much of a background. So I kind of thought that was true, that whatever they paid me would be fair because I didn't have, the experience that the woman who was stepping down did and things like that. And so the owner came back and said, okay, we're going to pay you 55. So they went down 5,000 because I said that. And 5,000 might not sound like a lot right now, but to me, that was almost 10% of the salary when you looked at, the 60,000. It was like 8-9%. That's a big dip, right? And that can make a difference. But I accepted it because I wanted the job. And if I were to go back, I really wish I would have said, oh, actually, Tony, who that was the gallery owner's name, Tony actually told me that this job starts at 60, and that really fits with what my expectations are for this role and what I think I can bring to this role. That's what I wish I would have said. That's what I would tell everybody today to say. If you made the mistake of even saying, you can pay me whatever you want. Yeah, that's what I wish I would have said. I didn't. They started me at 55. I will say I never got up to 60 the whole time I was there. And what irks me about that the most is that I was hand over fist better than the woman who stepped down. And I'm not saying that she wasn't talented. She was talented in her own way, but she was somebody who didn't understand technology. And so she took a lot of time doing the job. And she also didn't understand taxes. And I had the benefit of having a mother who was a CPA and a CFO of a company. And so I knew taxes. I filed my own taxes for years. And so all of this knowledge of technology, taxes, which were a big part of this job. For instance, I redid the entire website. We were spending like $2,000 a month on a website. And if we ever wanted to make a change, it would be a couple $100 because this developer would make the change for us. I was like, no, 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 no. I was like, Tony, I can build you a website and it's going to be $200 a year. And I even showed him the savings that I gave him. I mean, it was thousands of dollars that I saved him, right? And then I showed him all of the things that I did. And I told him, I was like, I think I deserve a raise. And he was like, yeah, okay, we'll take this into consideration. They gave me a 3% raise. And another thing that I wish I would have done is I wish I would have gone back and said, I think I deserve more because look at everything that I did, but that's all they gave me. I was too scared. I was too scared to do that. I was worried about getting let go, or I was worried more about Tony's feelings than my feelings. But here's the funny part. I paid all the gallery's bills, right? And the gallery put a lot of their bills on a credit card. That credit card statement every month was between $60,000 and $70,000. And I was making 55 a year. He could have paid me more. He could have paid me 60, and he didn't. And the reason why I'm going on this incredibly long tangent, and thank you for sticking with me on it, is to say that this was the lesson that I learned, that this world was all about money. But they tried to hide that fact by saying, oh, no, we're about culture. We're about bringing this culture and this art to life in our communities. We're about community outreach, blah, blah, blah. No, they were about money. Even the museum jobs, whenever they found my answers to questions about how to run the business of a museum lacking, they didn't hire me. And it was just little nuggets like this and little stories like this over and over and over again that made me realize, you know what? This world is toxic and I want out. And I'm not saying that the tech world is any better. But the thing about the tech world is I get paid a lot more, 3 times as much to be exact. And they're actually pretty upfront about the fact that money drives everything. I mean, in our monthly meetings at work, we talk about investor value and shareholder value and increasing revenue and MRR and CAR and ARR and all this crap. It's all about money. It's very obvious that this is about money. and also going through a layoff, which I did in May 2023. It's just so obvious that this is all about money. They don't sugarcoat it. Profit is king in that world. And I'm not saying that I feel great about that. I'm not saying it's awesome, but I don't feel like I'm being tricked. So to sum up for the career portion of this, I definitely don't think my younger self would have thought that my 38-year-old self would be this, I don't know, what's the word, bitter? Maybe not bitter. Wise? Maybe? Well, I'm definitely less idealistic, and I don't think my younger self would have seen that outcome. But I will say that I am not completely going to forget my values. I think all of these experiences have taught me that a job is a means to an end. It's not my entire purpose. In art and museums, I saw that as who I was rather than what I did. Now, in the tech world, I like my job. It's enjoyable, but it's not who I am. It's what I do. Okay, let's go to the finances side. So I know for a fact when I was younger, I didn't give two figs about money except to get it and spend it. And that lasted well into my mid-20s until I realized I was throwing money down the drain on crap that I would probably give away in a few years, if that. I think I've told this story on the podcast a couple times where I had an epiphany one day, and it's such a small thing, but it really was, where I was going through my closet and cleaning things out. My closet was very small because I was in New York City, and I was like, I need to make more room in here. And I started pulling things out that I didn't wear, and I noticed how many of the items that I was piling on my bed, and the pile on my bed was so big that it had to be 1.5 feet tall. I'm not even kidding. And a lot of the things still had the tags on them. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm sitting here making a grand total of $25,000 a month. My rent is $1,000 a month. So that's literally half my salary right there. And then I have thousands and thousands of dollars of credit card debt because of these pieces of fabric that I'm not even wearing. What is wrong with me? Yeah, that definitely changed. So when I think back to when I'm 26, 27, 28, that would have been where I shifted my mindset to go towards finances. And so that's when I probably would have thought about, okay, where do we want to get future Meghan? And so what would I have thought about where I am now at 38? Well, I know for a fact that younger me, meaning 26, 27-year-old me, would have been floored by how much money I have. And it's so funny because 38-year-old me is like, this is not enough, which is just the trap that we always fall into. But 26-year-old me, her jaw would have dropped if she had known her net worth was going to be close to $250,000. I mean, at 26, my net worth was like negative $80,000 roughly because I had student loans and credit card debt. So I don't think I could even fathom having $5,000 in the bank. And I almost always have that. That's not chump change or anything, but that's, what I get in a paycheck. So I have that every month, $5,000. And 26-year-old me would have seen that. I mean, that was, a fifth of my salary back then. So definitely finances have changed probably the most. I don't know. Career, probably the most. Finances, second most. I don't know. All of these actually are really big changes. I can't even say which one was the most. I think younger me would have been like, wow, Meghan, you're doing awesome. And so that brings me to the things that I'm proud of. And so number one is being willing to change my mind. So we as human beings do not have to stick to our guns just for the sake of saving face, just for the sake of saying, I had this value and I had it forever and I will never change. If a decision or a mindset or a belief no longer serves you, let it go. Let it go and change it. I'm proud of myself for doing just this when it comes to marriage and family, finances, career, all of it. but marriage and family specifically, because I actually truly believed when I was younger that a man like Chris just didn't exist. I had a lot of really bad relationships. I flitted from man to man. I did not have long-term relationships. I found relationships to be exhausting, and I preferred to be alone. I actually had a t-shirt that said something along the lines of, "The best men only exist in books." And so when I was younger, because of all of these terrible relationships, I vowed to just be single forever. I actually bought an infinity symbol ring and wore it on my left ring finger, the one that's like your marriage ring finger, to demonstrate that I was going to be single forever. Now, I'm not saying people who do want to be single forever should change their minds. That's not what I'm saying. But me specifically, I had this mindset because I was protecting myself from the hurt that I had repeatedly felt through these negative relationships. But once I opened myself up, once I worked on myself through therapy, through self-reflection, through really doing that hard work of going inwards and combing through the crap that is accumulated from, childhood trauma and everything in between, I found Chris. And if you think that sounds woo-woo, that's fine. But I swear it's not. Therapy is proven to change you if you do the work. 80% of going to therapy is you doing the work. You can't just go to therapy and just think it's going to change you. You have to do the change. Therapy is also the same as, a lot of people say, "Oh, I've gone to therapy before and it didn't work out for me." Well, that's like saying I've gone to the gym once before and I didn't lose weight. Okay. Well, if you go to the gym once, even if you go to the gym 10 times, that's not how it works. You have to go to the gym forever to consistently stay healthy. That's basically how therapy is. And I will say that not everybody needs therapy forever. Some of us, have more childhood trauma than others and may need it for a lot longer, like myself. But it is a long-term commitment to really see the changes that you want to see. It really is. And I am the least woo-woo person you will ever meet. I am like science for the win. And I am saying that therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, psychotherapy, whatever you want to choose, it works. It works when you put in the work. So another mindset that I also changed was about having kids. I alluded to this earlier, but once I realized why I shied away from wanting kids because of this past childhood trauma that I just said that I had, I realized that the reason for not wanting them really wasn't serving me. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't a good enough reason. I was so worried about being a bad parent is basically what was happening. But now I was like, oh, I am a different person than I used to be. I have worked on myself. I know how to continue working on myself. And then I also saw myself being a parent with Chris and how much fun that would be. And I just wanted to do it. And of course, the universe was like, now that you want kids, you can't have them. But hey, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And more knowledgeable. I will say I am the expert. Maybe not the expert, but I am definitely an expert on early menopause now. I have been reading all about what that is like, what it means, what you can do. And again, stay tuned for that episode. I will tell you everything about that later on this year whenever we get to the finish line of all of that. But yeah, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Okay, second thing that I am proud of, where I am today financially. Now, it may not be as far along as many of you out there who have reached FI by my age and then some. But looking back on my own life and my own journey, it's actually pretty remarkable. I went from making $25,000 a year on average. Now, this is an average. There were some years that were a lot lower and some that were a lot higher. Like those years I worked for the gallery that I was making 55. But there were some years where I was making more like 12. And so that's why it averaged out. But on average, as of 2017, I was making around $25,000 a year. And I had a negative net worth of $80,000. And now I'm making almost $150,000. And that's not even including Chris's income, which we're about to combine. And now I have $250,000 net worth. And I did all of that in 7 years. 7 years. Like, when I think about that, that's insane. Like, I can't even imagine what the next 7 years is going to be like. And by then I'm going to be 45. Maybe I'll be 5 by then. I really hope so. But that's nothing to sneeze at. And that was dedication. That was understanding what my true values in life were, and it is financial independence. It was also finding the FI movement through ChooseFI and all of the other FI voices out there like Paula Pant and Alan and Katie Donegan and JL Collins. All of these people lent to me building and building and building on this amazing milestone of a net worth. And I didn't even give up a lot. Maybe in the first year of finding FI, maybe the first 2 years, I gave up some, but I got away from that pretty quickly because I am a spendy person. And so I was like, you know what, I'm very unhappy and I want to continue spending how I want to spend. And I don't know, I'm just very proud of myself for that. My next challenge is to continue reminding myself about this and keep pushing on and to not compare myself to others who are on a completely different journey than I am. The last thing that I am proud of is my ability to adapt. Sometimes we have this expectation of our life. Live in New York, become a curator of a medieval art museum, buy a beautiful apartment on Riverside Drive on the Upper West Side, be a single, childless, independent New York woman who gets on the covers of art history magazines. But things always change. If we hold on too tight to what we think life should be, we don't get the chance to see how amazing life is. So on that note, that's it for this week's Meghan's Money Musings. Feel free to use this, albeit unstructured, thought experiment that I did on your next birthday. It felt pretty great, actually. So thanks for listening. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the EverydayFI podcast. If you're loving the show, here are some things you can do. Number 1, subscribe in your favorite podcast player and share the show with your friends and family. Number 2, please leave a review. I'm always looking for ways to improve the show. Number 3, check out my website, EverydayFI.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and leave comments for myself and the guest. Number 4, if you're interested in sharing your own financial independence story, you can find a submission form at everyday-fi.com/podcast. And finally, number 5, join my Patreon membership for only $5 a month at patreon.com/everydayfi podcast. This is a one-woman show, so every little bit counts. See you next time as we continue to go down the path to financial freedom.